And now for the panel discussion. This discussion is going to be about Kubernetes and cloud native friends, a journey of CNCF maintainers from India. And to discuss, I would like to call upon Madhav, Priyanka, Meha, Shubham, Ashutosh, and Mr. Shayan on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them all a very big round of applause. Expertise in their own areas. And it's going to be a very enriching panel discussion, I'm sure. So, this is a mic for all of you.
Thank you.
Which will be rotating, yes.
Hi. Exciting crowd today. Keynote was amazing. Don't you all agree with that? It set the tone for the next 2 days. It set the tone for what our Indian community stands for. It set the tone for the leadership positions that we hold. And it set the tone for what we can do going forward. So I'll spend just a couple of minutes introducing myself and then give a chance to our amazing CNCF maintainers here to introduce themselves. My name is Madhav. I am a technical lead in one of the subgroups in Kubernetes called Contributor Experience. I am also newly one of the GitHub admins of the Kubernetes project, and I also help maintain a few aspects of the Kubernetes project and some projects in the community there. I work at VMware, and yeah, why don't we start introducing ourselves? I don't think it's on. Is it?
Hi everyone. Still working?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Ashutosh and I am maintainer of cluster API provider Azure. And I work at VMware on cluster lifecycle team. Prior to this, I was contributing to OpenEBS and I'm one of the emeritus maintainers of that project.
Hey everyone, I'm myself Priyanka Sagu. I work at SUSE as a Kubernetes integration engineer. Currently, I'm a TL at 4SIG Contribix and have held. Am I audible now? Okay, I'll start again. Sorry for it. My name is Priyanka Sagu. I work at SUSE as a Kubernetes integration engineer. I'm a TL of SIG Contribix, fellow to Madhav. I've also held other leadership positions in the project in SIG release area. Yep.
Hello everyone. So I am Meha Palodia. I am currently working as a software quality engineer at Red Hat. And yes, apart from the full-time job, I participate in upstream community initiatives. Like currently, I am leading the CI signal team in Kubernetes release. And yes, I am maintaining a Keptn project, which I have started contributing as a part of Google Summer of Code. So yes, that's pretty much about me.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sayan Chaudhary. I work with Microsoft as a Linux software engineer working on Flatcar Container Linux. And in the past, I have been part of various other projects as well. Like I used to regularly contribute to Fedora and very highly active in the Python community, being a PyCon chair in 2020. And I'm also a PSF fellow and part of the PSF grants committee. Due to my day job, I have been regularly interacting with the community now, and it's really great to be at this conference. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Shubham. I also work at Microsoft, and I'm on the Dapr team, so I maintain the Dapr's JavaScript SDK. Yeah, I've been working there for a year now. I'm doing full-time open source, sort of, from Microsoft. Yeah.
Awesome. So a rough theme that I'm sort of seeing from introductions here is that through thick and thin, folks have found their way back into open source as part of their day jobs, either as part of their day jobs or are still doing it because of a hobby project or because of their interest in it, or they want to move the community forward, right? So I also want to stress a little bit on that theme as we move through the questions. A rough show of hands here. How many folks have contributed to open source in some form or the other, actively are not active anymore or something, right? That's quite a big room there. Okay, awesome. So let's start off, right? Sayan, let's start off with you. Having contributed to a few open source communities, what are some common patterns or mistakes you've seen people make or you've made yourself, and what do you advise folks, or what do you hope to have done differently?
Yes, so for me it has been almost 12 years now in the open source community, and through my early journey, one of the things that I saw was the mistake that I did was I kept hopping on a lot of projects, and in today's keynote, Nikita and Nabarun emphasized on the fact that consistency is important. So if you want to really grow into the community, it's really important to stay longer, so you start small. Even if you are stuck with a problem, be at it for a longer time, ask smart questions to the mentors, because mentors are with very limited time, so you really need to be very smart with your questions, but they do really want to help you. And so when you stay at a project, try to think of ideas and how you can improve the project, so that overall over time you grow into the in a governing role, because it's very important that slowly you grow into the community at a position where you can give your thoughts, give your ideas, share your thoughts in the community. And I would say another issue, another thing that I usually see is I also heard in this conference bunch of times, paying it forward. So it's really important to pay it forward. I was lucky enough that I had a mentor at a very early stage, and coming from a city where we really did not have the resources, those mentorship helped me, and I think there are people across the country where they really need our help, and we are lucky enough that we can provide them with that. So find opportunities in the country so that we can make this open source community bigger. I mean, people would have issues with internet, or find there are or like find way to make it easier for them rather than making it difficult. So those are the things I would share. These are the problems I faced, as well as like over time I did mistakes, that because I mentor people, I used to take things for granted, but over time I learned that you really need to find interest areas, so that at the end of the day we really want to grow the open source community.
Yeah, I really liked your point about helping folks from areas who might not have the same technical opportunities or exposure, right? So Ashutosh, like, I know we've spoken about this in the past, and I would like to ask you, having grown in the communities you have, and having grown in the open source communities you have, the cornerstone of any open source community will be to pay it forward. And we'll talk about mentorship in just a bit, but what are your thoughts on the ways that we can encourage and support contributors and potential maintainers from areas here in India that don't have the same technical exposure and don't have the same technical opportunities?
Yeah, so first of all, I started my open source journey in 2017, and I was lucky enough to, land around people who could mentor me. Some of them are here in this room, so thanks for that. And then initially, before I get into how can we help mentor people and grow into leadership roles, there were two mistakes that I personally made. At that age, I was like, okay, people mostly rush to make impact. You may come there and you want to, you will rush to make impact. So that is something that you shouldn't be doing. And I think I can't emphasize enough, like Sayan and other folks have said, that you should just pick a SIG or pick an area and just kind of babysit those areas, find an issue that you want to work upon, and go on. So that's the mantra to start on any open source project. Apart from that, I come from Bihar, so when I passed out my college, I didn't know nothing about open source, and then I went into this open source journey, grew myself. What I tried to do was like from my college or from my hometown or neighboring areas, I met people. I attended meetup and I tried to kind of teach them open source. It would mostly be around, okay, this is the issue, how can you, work on that, it was mostly around Golang, for example. So how can you learn Golang and contribute to projects? I help a lot of people contribute on open source, OpenEBS specifically. And it simply requires, just being kind to them and, sharing your stories. Okay, you can do that. And, having one-on-ones with them. So that is pretty much it that you can do. And I'm also continuously working on this right now. And I'm trying to bring more representation from these states, especially like, northeastern part of the state in India. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's what I think.
Awesome. Wow, that was really nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So having spoken about how do we bring more people in and encourage more folks, right? Another question that we sort of have to keep in mind while we do this is every open source project, every open source community reaches an inflection point at some point. That is, you need to make a trade-off that do we grow more people within the community or do we encourage more people to step into the community, right? And I think constrained by maintain a bandwidth, how do we sort of balance and prioritize that? And I know Priyanka is someone who can talk to that because we've experienced similar things in the Kubernetes community.
Yeah, thank you, Madhav. So coming from like Kubernetes, the question here is for the survival of the project. Like we want the project to survive and not only survive, grow and rise as well. So it eventually comes down to people. We need people to do the job for the survival of the project. Mm-hmm. Now, there are already people who are maintainers, like bunch of folks who are doing the hard job. Some of them are doing it because they are the only people who have the technical expertise and they have to do it to have the project running. And maybe other people are doing it because they like to do it. That's not going to stay forever. There will be a time when they have to step down or maybe they'll move on and then other folks have to come in to fill in their responsibilities. And we can't start at that time to ramping up other folks. We need to have processes beforehand to do the knowledge transfer. So we need to have defined knowledge transfer processes. Another thing is some people just stay there in their position. So since we are talking about bringing in more people into the project, people just do not want to contribute. They want to get recognition as well. If they are spending time, maybe are there for like years, they want to grow further in the project. That's what we also expect from our jobs, right, when we get into our jobs. So we need to have not only knowledge transfer processes in place, also leadership or power transfer processes in place as well. One of the examples we have is from SIG Contribex itself. Like the previous or the current TLs, we have Nikita here and Christoph and other chairs. They ran a SIG Contribex leadership cohort, and they brought in people from the community who were willing to step up to be new leads, and they give mentorship to them. And now Madhav and I joined the SIG Contribex as TL, and Nabarun here as chair. Out of that Contribex mentorship cohort. So we have processes, we need to make them standard across, maybe talking about Kubernetes, other parts of the project, and maybe we can take that learning through to other projects as well. And talking about the influx of new contributors into the project, well, since we are talking that maintainers are already burnt out, they are already working just enough to survive the project. So we actually need more existing people. We need to ramp them up to take over these positions. We need to have a turnover process, a power transfer or leadership transfer processes in place. We can't have one person being there forever. Even if, since right now, even if they are not willing to do it, they have to do it because they are the only people who have the context with them. So we need to have processes in place for the survival of the project, because we can't build project dependency on people. We need to build dependency on processes. Another thing, like while bringing a new contributor into the projects, I think we have done a lot of new contributor workshops in past for Kubernetes specifically. Um, and we advertise that the community is very welcoming, which, which is true, but since we are also running short on maintainers who have the context, who are the people who will pass over the knowledge. So maybe we need to be very explicit about what we need out of the new contributors. It does not mean that the community is not welcoming enough. It is, but what I want to emphasize here is we also want the folks who are coming to the project to doing some work to help the contributors, maintainers who are already burnt out. So expect help, but also expect that you will have to stay there, you will have to be persistent in the community, you will have to show up, and then definitely expect help. It will be there, but not spoon feeding, not hand holding, definitely.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And since you mentioned processes in place and expectations of contributors coming in, if mentoring time is spent on them, there has to be some expectations set, right? So Meha, I wanted to ask you, like, since you've been through a few structured mentoring programs, what are your thoughts on the importance of mentorship, or more rather the sustainability of one-on-one mentorship? Can it prolong for a long period of time given the scale of some of the projects we work in? And what are some of the, unsustainable things that you've come across?
So yes, like I would like to say about, because I was part of a 6 CLI mentoring program, which was totally handled by the CLI community in Kubernetes. So what we had, like we had a few weeks of sessions, and in every week there is some round through, walk through to the code base, and the maintainer spends time explaining every single bit of thing, just to make sure that the new contributors can jump in and they start contributing to it. So now what is expected is, like whenever you are asking some questions to the maintainers, don't directly jump out, just make sure like you are doing your homework before asking some question randomly. Like just be sure to be specific, because it takes a time for a maintainer to respond you back, but just keep patience and don't expect hand holding, because spoon feeding is not the thing like maintainers can do for you, because there are so many new contributors coming into every day. So yes, just I would like to say, like, make sure you study the project before asking any random thing.
Yeah, I really like the point about make sure to ask specific questions, because like one thing that I sort of feel is the how fast you get a response back from a maintainer is inversely proportional to amount of time you spend thinking about it before you ask the question. So thank you for that. Switching gears a little bit, and like I think this is a really interesting topic to talk about, and we have about 7 minutes of question time left. So we'll try and move a little quicker now. Justifying the business value of open source software can be a little tricky. And in this economic climate, it is not uncommon to have folks pull back from OSS in the community. So having said that, do you think there is a trade-off involved here with respect to continuing doing open source in your day job versus what are folks looking for in terms of how much value are you providing to them? Shubham, let's start off with you, because I know you work on Dapr.
Yeah, so I can pitch in a bit here. So when I started working on Dapr, it was more of a 100% open source project, but then priorities change. So now some of my time goes into Azure stuff, some of my time goes into open source stuff. And being a maintainer, you also have to take care of the open source part. So you are a maintainer, so even if you don't have bandwidth in your day job, you still have to find some time to, you have some commitments there, so you have to spend some time there. So yeah, it comes to the trade-off that sometimes you have to work over the weekends, extra hours, just to do your maintainership stuff, which is not directly associated to your day job. But then, yeah, like if you have taken some commitment up, yeah, there's a trade-off there. So yeah, I also had a point on like one more thing regarding the previous thing actually. So being a maintainer, right? I come from a smaller project like Dapr JavaScript SDK. It's not as big as a Kubernetes project. We don't have mentorship programs in place. But as a maintainer, if I'm always like, burnt out, I don't spend time on looking at the onboarding side of things, making it easier for new contributors. as a result, I don't get new contributors, which result in more maintainer burnout, right? So
Yep.
it's a vicious cycle. So
Yep.
you have to, like, if I spend some time, maybe say 2 hours a week, making sure, okay, the new contributors have good guidelines in place, they have good PR examples, my issues are labeled properly, I'm doing pull request reviews on time. So these small things, I think, encourage new contributors to come up and also like join the project. Yeah. Sorry for sidetracking a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And this continuing on the same theme, right? And I know I've spoken like very passionately with Ashutosh also about this. So Ashutosh, I'd like to ask you the same question, but also along the lines of like doing these open source work, how has it helped you grow in your career, especially with having external recommendations from the community and external references and things like that, right? Same justifying OSS and the trade-off involved there, along with the additional benefits that you've personally gained.
Sure. It has definitely helped me a lot. I think I got all my jobs based on recommendation only. So you start contributing to open source and build your profile. That's a very sweet spot to be in, because once you start doing that, people know what you're contributing to and you gain your visibility. I mean, we could talk about this like for longer hours, but that's the TLDR of the story. But another thing that's been talked about is like, open source and folks pulling out of open source, and we have been trying to persuade or convince businesses, how to do open source and stuff like that. But it's a bit of nuanced world where, when we work in a company, for example, let's consider a case of MySQL server being used in a company. Several applications use MySQL, and it may not be possible for the company to have a dedicated team to contribute back to MySQL server, right? So there's definitely a trade-off, and we need to like figure that point, where you should have a dedicated team to contribute upstream. So nevertheless, consider a scenario where I am building a product that relies heavily on open source project and uses it extensively, right? It makes sense to have a, upstream team to kind of, because when you have that, it makes more easy to provide better customer support, and your product development becomes more faster, because when more and more people from different companies come and contribute to a project, you can have increased release cadence, you'll have more security fixes, and at the end of the day, if customers know that, okay, this is built on this core open source project, you have wider adoption, right?
Yep.
So these are the things that, a lot of open source developers like us try to convince and have been successful, and I was lucky to get into open source roles. So I think it's catching up, and I see a lot of startup in Bangalore also doing, work like that. So yeah, that's where.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And one reason that I really wanted to, I was excited about this question is also to mention that at least folks in the Kubernetes community, if you are someone who wants to contribute to Kubernetes as part of their day job, we sort of help try and walk you through how you can go about convincing your employer. It might be a little more difficult given the economic climate, but this is something that we have done in the past. And this is something that we can help you out with. So if that is something you want to talk to us about, feel free to find any of us and ask us that question, right?
One more point I just wanted to add, sorry to interrupt,
no,
is like,
please.
if you contribute to open source, it also helps in your promo cycles. Like you can get recommendation from folks outside if you're working with, folks from different company, they do help you providing recommendation to your managers for promo and stuff like that. So just wanted to mention this, and this is perfectly fine, to go and ask that, hey, can you help me write a recommendation and stuff like that. But make sure you do that work.
Yeah. Okay. Now switching gears a little bit, and this is a question that I don't hope to have answers for, and neither of our panelists hope to have answers for. But working with highly diverse communities that are also highly distributed can come with its own set of experiences, right? So this is something that I want all of our panelists to sort of share. So what have your experiences been, right? So let's start off with Shubham.
Okay. So yeah, when you're working in a more distributed and diverse landscape, right? You work with people outside your company. So I typically have meetings 3 nights in a week with folks from different companies, including Microsoft, Dapr, and so on. So one of the key challenges, I would say, from an Indian landscape point of view, right, is that most of the meetings are like US centric. So, for example, you have no meetings day on 4th of July, the Independence Day, or the Memorial Day, but you don't have one on Diwali for sure. Yeah, so it's a bit tricky, right, in that regard. And sometimes, like I think we have tried doing APAC friendly meetings as well, but that didn't work out for us. And I think one of the good things that we do is record all our meetings, so even if you're not available, you can still go and have a look at that. But yeah, I think that's a key thing that, and if we have more contributors from India, definitely I think we'll have more influence over doing, like rotating the meeting times between APAC and US. But then yeah, that's a trade-off, I would say.
Yeah. Sayan, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Shubham here. So, time zones are one of the trickiest problem to solve here. Most of the time zones for me as well ends up at having 10 p.m. meeting, which is quite late, and usually Indians lose on their evening time, the family time that US folks describe, that is gone for us. But I also see that we definitely putting out the point there, which I mentioned, and also Shubham mentioned, is like having more people. Right now, most of the people are from that community, I mean from the western side of the world. But if you have more contributors contributing and growing into and getting in the position where they can vote a voice, we'll have, we can basically, like right now, even if you have a PAC meeting, their decision ends up having there. So, but this is because we mostly have contributors, but if we have more people here, then we can probably take the decisions and pass along the decision that we took here to the other side. But yeah, this has like a coin has two sides. This also has two sides. I tend to start up. I mean, if I am privileged enough, because I sometimes start up at 2 p.m. work till 10, but I usually try to maintain an 8-hour cycle because this I have learned the hard way. But it's really important. But yeah, this also benefits. Like if I have something to do in the morning, I can do it very easily. Usually. Maybe doing some chores at the house, but those are shut down at evening, but I can do it easily in the morning hours. Yep. One issue that I primarily face is, I would say, the barrier of the English communication side. I mean, we think in our local native language, we are not English speakers, so when coordinating in a meeting, I find it very hard to interpret what they said. And by the time I have processed the line item, what they are discussing, the discussion has probably moved on. So this is an item I have been struggling with. I have taken steps to get better at it. It's primarily like asking the person that I am thinking something, gives me some time to think about this problem. But be it, I have done a lot of IRC meeting, so that involves typing speed as well. So be it your vocal or typing, both are like heavily dependent on how quickly you can process your thoughts and write those thoughts down, because they do it in a pretty quicker manner. Yep. So I think that is something I have faced myself.
Got it. Okay. We have 2 more minutes. Meha, what about you?
So yes, like I will talk about like what I have faced. Like when I got a chance to submit like a talk to give a talk at a KubeCon, but my visa got rejected 2 times. But maintainers was quite good enough. Like they figured out like to include me. Like they have presented my journey and whatever my talk focuses on. So they make sure like even if you are not present or you are not there, the things will get worked out. So this is a good thing I have like experienced. So yes, it helped me a lot.
Yep. Priyanka?
Since we have talked about time zone and other stuff, I'll like to mention about the women leadership and non-male leadership. Especially in Kubernetes, I have experienced it firsthand as part of a program that we were doing, Meet Our Contributors APAC. And I was trying to reach out to folks from APJ or APAC area, trying to very specifically reach out to female or non-male contributors. And it was very surprising that we hardly have any female contributors or non-male contributors in these areas. In India, it's better, thanks to, again, Nikita and other people who are in the governing space. So I'll +1 to what Sayan said, having a voting power in hand always changes situations, but yeah, that's a problem, and hopefully we can work towards solving that.
Yeah, for sure. And to to end it out, one thing I would really like to specify is, from all of the answers that you've heard here today, it might seem like, okay, there is problem X, problem Y, problem Z. These are communities. These are socio-technical systems, and they're very complex communities. They're going to have problems. What I wanted to highlight is there is significant work happening here in India. There is significant work happening here that you saw as part of the keynote. And one thing I really want you to take away from this is you are empowered enough to want to contribute on your own terms. Okay, I think we're out of time. Kiran, do we have time for one question? One or two questions? One question? Okay, we have one hand here. We can take that if we have time. Hopefully we have time. Otherwise we can connect offline.
Quick question. Have you encountered racism, subtle or otherwise, in your contributing journeys? And if yes, how did you navigate that?
So to reiterate the question was, have you encountered subtle racism in your contributing journeys?
Or doesn't have to be subtle.
Doesn't have to be subtle.
I would say I have faced racism during my contribution journey, and I'm not sure if they if the folks who did, they actually understood what happened. I won't go into the specifics on how it happened, but it did happen, and it did take a very mental toll on me, and I'm still suffering. I mean, it's been a hard journey for me over the last 2-3 years, but it does take a lot of time to recover, and I don't think it will. I mean, I did not take action to stop it, but it did happen, and it happened over a span of time. For 6 months continuously, I was getting comments and stuff, which was kind of, I felt like an attack. So, but I never raised my voice because I was a bit afraid on how things would go on in the longer run. Because at the end of the day, everybody is cared about their job and stuff. So, so yeah. So, but it did take a lot of toll on my mental health side. Yeah.
I would just add one bit. I think I'm sure everybody would have faced it in one or other way. And like Science said, it's sometimes hard to raise it. You are trying to tell them and they would not understand they are doing it. Some sort of implicit bias because they feel like, oh, we are not, other people, our own people are not saying it to us. Why are you saying it? So maybe it's a mentality or culture difference. But yeah, it's there.
I've not faced it like that much, like I was lucky enough, but I did had faced it in a subtle manner, but I'm pretty vocal about that and stop that person they're trying to do. You should also do that, you know, and raise your voices. We all should, and I understand that at, you know, that point of time, you know, like 4-year backs or 5-year backs, I would have not raised my voice because then you have this, you want to be in a psychological safe space where you have a job, you want to keep your job, but then I've started to, you know, clarify that you shouldn't have said this or this is not how, you know, it should be, and having a clear boundary on, you know, your work and versus all of this stuff helps. So I'll say I was pretty vocal about all of this in past.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I think it's really important, and thank you for your answers and sharing that. I don't think we have time for another question, but do we? No? Okay.
We do have one announcement, so we can continue this conversation.
Yeah, hey folks, so we're planning to do an unconference session about exactly this, maintainership, upstream contributions, how to get involved in open source, how can we grow the culture in India. Tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Near the first floor stairs near Audi 2. So you can just ask some of us around, like any of the panelists here, me, Nabaran. There'll be, just reach out to us if you face difficulties in finding the location. So an unconference session, if you're not familiar, is just like a round table. We're just going to sit around the stairs and discuss some ideas and experiences and so on. So tomorrow 2:30 p.m. first floor near the Audi 2. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, panelists. It's not very easy to kind of come out with hard stories. Thank you for sharing these things. Yeah.
A big round of applause for all the panelists. I think very fabulously spoken and definitely experts in their own fields. Amazing. Thank you so much for all the words that you had to share. Thank you.